Hello, Archibald Chesterfield III, AC3, and today we're doing paid reviews. Remember, like, subscribe, and tell your fuckhead friends. Remember, look in the description for 10 ways you can help me stay full-time on YouTube. And today I've been asked a very interesting question. And I don't talk about movements as much as I should. That's one criticism I will cop on the chin. Hello Archie, love the channel. Sometimes I agree to disagree, and other times I couldn't agree more with some of your content. Either case, yours is a very entertaining channel. I've sent you $20 US through PayPal and would like you to discuss what you feel are the top 5 important movements ever designed and why. I hope that everyone who enjoys the channel will find this an interesting topic. I look forward to watching it. All the best. Wowzers, that's a very, very interesting topic. The five best movements. Whew. Let's start. Now, I'm going to start off at the Patek end. One of the movements I really love is the Patek 215 movement. Now, that is Patek's bread and butter manual wind movement. That movement is in things like the 3919, which was the classic Calatrava that came out in the 80s. It's in things like even things like a rectangular 5010. It's in 5009, one of my favorite watches. It's in the 5119, the 5196. They all use the Patek 215 movement. Manual wind, no date, just a simple, very, very good bread and butter movement. The next movement I want to talk about is the Patek 324 movement. And I gotta tell you, I'm just gonna move my stand over here. I gotta tell you, these are a very, 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 very versatile movement. The 324 movement was that type of movement there was it's in the 5127, it's in the 5296. It's used by so many different pieces, and I've got to be honest with you, it's the 324 movement is probably Patek's movement of choice. It's in the 5711, the Nautilus, which is the one everyone is crazy for. It's a fabulous movement, and I gotta tell you, it's one of these. It's got the big rotor. That's how you can tell it. It's a very nice movement in the display back, and an interesting thing is that Patek uses a 21 or 22 karat gold rotor, and the first Patek automatic movement came out in 1953, and the 324 movement is a really, really cool piece. It's probably, see, that movement is also, it powers a lot of the it powers a lot of the annual calendars and the annual calendar chronograph. They use that 324 type of movement there, and I can't fault it. It's a cool movement. It's a very, very attractive looking piece, and you really can't go wrong with it. It's got a lot of push on that movement there. It just works so well. They've used it across the range in so many pieces. So many watches Patek has used that machine on there. And you know, that movement itself is probably their bread and butter movement for the future. It's a non-hacking movement, believe it or not. I didn't know this until I bought one of the, you know, I had my Calatrava, but it's really quite a it's quite an interesting movement itself there. And the 324 movement itself, it's actually the version I had in my 5107 was a 315 movement. So the 315 became the 324. So when I say 324, it encompasses both those movements there. The 324 is a Hyatt Hertz movement of the 315. The Hertz is how many beats per second, beats per hour they have there. Normally it's about, I think the 324s are 28,800, whereas the 315 was a 21,000 something movement. So that's that family of movements. The next movement, which I really love, is the Patek Patek 240 movement. That's the micro rotor movement, and that movement itself there is what is in my world time. So it's famous. If you look at the display back, it's famous for having that little spindle there, that little spindle, and that movement itself also is used on many complications. Patek uses a 240 movement on their perpetual calendar. It's based on a 240 movement. They use it on the world time movement. So it's really quite a cool movement indeed there. And the 240 movement itself there, it's a 27 jewel movement. I mean that probably, the jewels, the number of jewels, you know, doesn't make it good or bad. You know, obviously certain number of jewels you need, but it's quite a, I think it's a great movement. The 240 movement's always been there, really upmarket, been their upmarket type of movement there. Now the jewel count does change. If you look at the world time, it's actually, I think it's 33 jewels they use in the world time, in the 240 HU movement. But I mean, look, that movement based, that 240 movement is pretty spectacular. I think it's a really good movement. And I mean, do I prefer the 240? Do I prefer the 324 movement? Look, they're both pretty good, different applications. Interestingly, the 240 doesn't have center seconds, whereas the 324 movement and the 315 movement, you could have that with center seconds. That's just a characteristic. The 324 movement, I think, has got about 29 joules from memory, and fabulous movement indeed there. The 215 movement itself there, oh geez, what's that? I think it's about 18 joule movement. But you know, the thing is, these are quality. Rolex seems to they've changed a lot of movement numbers over the years, whereas Patek, smaller production run, these movements I think are the key to Patek itself there. I mean, that's why when you say what are the five, what movements are the best, well, most highly regarded, I have to give it the the Patek 215 movement, because it's Patek's bread and butter manual wind. The 315 / 3-2-4 movement, that's their big rotor automatic movement. They use it on the 5107, 5127, all those annual calendars, they use that movement. The annual calendar chronographs, they use that basic block there. Then you've got the Protect 240 movement. That micro rotor movement is really quite it's really quite fantastic. It's a great movement. It is a really it's a really great movement. The other movement, I suppose you'd have to say, if you're talking about movements, what's a great movement? I'd have to give it to Omega, which uses the I'd have to say the 861 movement. Now, even my Speedmaster itself, it's got the 1861, which is a rhodium plated version of the 861. That 861 is probably, I reckon, one of the best manual wind chronograph movements of all time. It is fantastic. It's a great movement, and you know they've used it. That came out late 60s, and it's still used in so many pieces. That is a killer. That's just a great movement itself there. So I don't think you can mistake that movement there. Now in the fifth spot, this is where it gets hard there, because I'm thinking, you know, what movement would you give this spot to? And I'd have to say, you know, Rolex has really evolved a lot with their movements there. They put a lot of R&D into their movements. I think you'd have to give it, probably, if you're going to pick a Rolex movement, I think the 3135 movement, which is the base for a lot of their current movements. It's a movement which was made famous. Mainly, that movement was used in a lot of Datejust, used in a lot of Submariners, particularly the Sapphire Submariners. It's a quick set movement. The 3135 is probably, I think that base caliber there is probably one of the best all time. Now, you could say, well, what about these new Rolex movements? Yeah, I really love the 3135 movement, and that's because it's a lot easier to fix than these. I think Rolex is being a bit of a bastard, where they are really trying to get these movements where no other bastard can fix them besides themselves. These special mainsprings and things like that are just going to make it hard for anyone else to do any service work, and I think that's a shame. I mean, the Swiss are so fucking greedy. They are so fucking greedy. I mean, I love the Swiss. I love Swiss watches, but fuck, are they the most... They're really fucking nasty fuckers when it comes to money. You know, they're fucking nasty. But anyhow, so there you go, fuckers. 5 fantastic movements. 5 fantastic movements. I don't know if you guys want me to talk about these movements in detail. I mean, I love movements, because that's the heart. It's like the engine to the watch. But many people, you know, you start talking movement numbers, and it gets a bit fucking away from the aesthetics and, you know, other things. I kind of I'm not a watchmaker too. That's the other thing too. I wouldn't pull one of these fuckers apart. But there you go. And I think as a sixth movement, what other movement would you'd have to recognize? This is something a lot of you fuckers wouldn't give me credit for, but I think you'd have to recognize the Valjoux 7750 movement. I mean, that movement, it's the automatic chronograph. Breitling, IWC, Hamilton, so many watchmakers, so many big companies have used it. I think you'd have to mention the 7750 movement. It's a killer movement, and it's powered a lot of great pieces. So there you go, there you go, fuckers. That's 6 movements, 6 great movements. Tell me what you fuckers think. Tell me what you fuckers think. I'm Archie Luxury, talking wristwatch movements, fuckers.
We specialize here in pre-owned Rolex watches. Rolex watch is a very special timepiece, and we always do the servicing exactly as factory specifications. We buy a pre-owned piece and we put it into brand new condition. We have Rolex certified technicians working on that. We completely disassemble the piece. We adjust and polish and change every single part of the watch.
You have to have certified watchmakers that know what they're doing. If you have an expensive car, you're just not going to bring it to any mechanic that doesn't know what they're doing.
You spend $5,000, it's like if you put money in the safe deposit box. And 1 or 2 years from now, you will keep having your $5,000. We have to spend a lot of money to get all this equipment together, but makes me feel I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. It's not a question of money, it's my passion.
Jewelers on time, simply the best.